This FedGov Today program is sponsored by AFCEA International and Carasoft. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, version 2.0 of the Navy's vision for superiority, rewriting the rule book for government-industry collaboration, and data becomes the coin of the realm for warfighting at sea. Welcome to FedGov Today with Francis Rose. Next month will be the 6-month anniversary of the second iteration of the Navy's information superiority vision. The service says version 2.0, quote, describes the Don's vision for delivering the correct information to the right place at the right time. Barry Tanner is the Deputy Chief Information Officer for the Navy at West 2025 in San Diego this week. He tells me what's new in version 2.0.
ISV 2.0 is the evolution of our original vision that was set forth in 2019. Mr. Aaron Weiss at the time, Don CIO, came in and said, we really need to change how we're thinking about implementing our technology and have a vision to modernize, innovate, and defend, right? And we did a lot of goodness with that vision, but we learned along the way that those weren't exactly the right focus areas, the right pillars. And so we've now evolved that to optimize, secure, and decide. And as we've evolved, we had the new version of the vision signed out by the Secretary last summer. And what it really does is take what we've learned over the last 5 years and start to apply those lessons to how we're going to move forward. In the modernize area, we shifted that to optimize so that we were thinking not just about putting on new things or doing new stuff, but also how we were going to sunset the older technology in order to help reinvest in where we were headed. A lot of people like to say that in DoD, we're really good about building things and we're really bad about turning things off. And that's true everywhere. So our focus is not just on improving the information environment and enabling the warfighter through that, but also helping them sunset the old technologies and adopt those new ones so that we continue to move forward as a total force. And so things like Operation Cattle Drive, which is about looking for those opportunities to divest and then turn around and reinvest in the future. Secure, defend sounded really good, but that's kind of reactive. Defend is once you've already got a problem, and secure is more about from the beginning, secure by design. And so our teams, through an initiative called Cyber Ready, try to shift away from a compliance mindset and more to a readiness mindset when it comes to cybersecurity. Taking the original intent of our RMF process, managing risk dynamically, and driving that down into more of a readiness mindset. And so between that, working closely with our defense industrial base partners to help better secure information on the edge and out in industry. And then finally, just changing the culture for folks to think about security right at the beginning, not as an afterthought, not as a bolt-on. And finally, the decide pillar is, something that we had across the original vision as, data is important for everything, but data in and of itself is not enough. You have to be able to use that data in a way to help you make good decisions. And so the decide pillar is all about how we empower people to get the most out of their data and turn it to decision advantage. And so, AI is the buzzword everywhere. They're all talking about it everywhere. And there's goodness there, but we've been doing AI really for years, right? It's, what people are using the buzzword for, things like generative AI and large language models, are the evolution of things that we've been doing for a long time. Natural language processing, big data analytics and other things like that, that all is about making better decisions. And so our team is now focused on empowering the workforce with guidance and platforms that are going to help them unleash the power of the data that they have. And then across those 3 pillars, we've got 2 cross-cutters. We're still interested in innovation, right? Innovation cuts across the whole thing. And we want to make sure that everybody's thinking about innovating in a structured and focused way. So we've put out guidance to use sort of a horizon methodology, thinking about things from when they're just good ideas to where they move to, now I want to pilot and prove this out, and then now how do I scale that and turn it into something that I can use across the force, and in a structured way work through that for all the technology that we're looking at. And then workforce, right? None of this happens without people. And so empowering our workforce and partnering with the services, the Navy and the Marine Corps, to truly unleash the power of our people, give them the tools they need, the training that they need, and think about the entire life cycle of technology and how we incorporate it into doctrine and operations and manpower and all those other components of the process.
Mm-hmm. A couple of things there you said I want to follow up on. First of all, you made the observation that I don't think anybody in this room would argue with, that the department broadly, not just the Navy, is bad at turning things off. What are the obstacles to getting people to think differently about that? And I think the point that you made about reinvesting what you take from things that are turned off is probably one of the ways to motivators.
Yeah.
But how do you get people to think differently about that idea?
Well, the hardest thing about migrating off of old platforms is the process side, right? In a lot of cases, platforms that have been around for a very long time were designed at a time where technology was a limiter, and so people changed their processes to match that technology. And it's been around so long that it's hard to change how you work. Mm-hmm. So part of this is educating people about what's possible. And what we found to be very effective is to focus on the use case. Instead of like how you do it today, it's like, what do you need to get done? What is the outcome you're trying to drive to? And once people see that there is an alternative, a viable alternative, rather than just this is how we do it, in most cases, they're very willing to look at how they pivot and use new technology to do things. Once you're past that burden, then it becomes a matter of understanding how to extract the information out of wherever it is, shift people over to using the new capability wherever it is. And this all sounds easy, it's not. But once you get folks over there, you get critical mass in the new place, then it's just a matter of, at a certain point, okay, that one's done, here's your timeline, everybody now needs to move, and then you execute the plan. Like I said, it sounds easy, it's not easy. Change is hard across the board. And a lot of times our legacy technology makes it super hard to get the information out of where it is. So we work closely with industry partners, people who just happen to know how that old thing works, and try to get that information out as best we can. But in the end of the day, the forcing function is we have to get rid of the old stuff because it takes up too much of our time. It's a security risk. And frankly, it's gotten so expensive that there's no real business case to keep it around.
That's right. You talked about workforce empowerment.
Yes.
And that being one of the cross-cutting goals of the work that you're doing. Where do you think you've made the greatest movement, the greatest impact in workforce empowerment? And where do you still have aspirations to grow and expand?
Well, so with the pace of change, technology goes so much faster than pretty much anything else these days. It is very difficult to keep up with that. In some cases, people are kind of change fatigue, they call it. It's like, wait a minute, I just learned the new thing, and then now you're giving me another one? So what we're trying to do is elevate the conversation from individual tools, individual widgets, to more about that outcome mindset, right? What are you trying to accomplish? And then giving everybody a common set of basic tools that they can then use without needing to know all the inner details, right? So it's sort of low code, no code platforms and places where you can unleash people's ideas, but they don't have to be a coder. They don't have to understand the underlying technology. So we've implemented platforms recently, our investment in Office 365 and some of the things that are there, it comes with some platforms that let people do that. And frankly, what we did was organize the force, and this is part of our migration strategy, but we created this group called the Navy Champions Network, right? And this is on the Navy side. The Marine Corps had a very similar approach to it. But go out into the commands and say, all right, those of you who are really interested, our early adopters, come in, we'll show you how all this works, and then let them put in those use cases and show their own teams with their own context how to do this better, how to do it smarter. And I'll tell you, the power of that network is amazing. It has grown to thousands of people across the Navy, and they are constantly coming to us and saying, I need more, I need better, I need newer, I need more capacity, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of be careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
Right.
But I'll say that's one success area. The challenge, frankly, is in going beyond that sort of an early adopter community into folks who are just trying to get the work done, and making it easy for them to get their job done with the tools they have. And that's a challenge across the board, and it's not unique to Navy or anywhere else. But some of our key initiatives are focused on it should just work, right? Make it as simple as possible, even just down to the laptop in front of you, not having to go through 7 different processes just to start working, and just open the top, log in, and go. And we've made great strides there, but it is that user experience that we're focused on and trying to simplify that as much as possible. And in the end, when it comes to the workforce that needs to deliver these things, we have been working very closely with our partners in the HR and the manpower community to take a hard look at how we identify where our skills are and help grow those. We had a great briefing yesterday from our partners in N2N6 and the principal cyber advisor, who have made a huge strides in codifying kind of what the workforce looks like in a very granular way, so that we can understand what we have, where those skills lie, and then figure out how to empower them or grow in the places that we need help.
You can read more about the Navy's Information Superiority Vision 2.0 and find a link to it on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, rewriting the rule book for government industry collaboration. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment.
One of the things, as a cyber guy from the Department of Defense, one of the things that amazes me is the threats to national security today, I think, aren't just state actors. I mean, you're seeing the emergence of people with a cause, and they jump on one side or another on an issue, and that becomes a national security threat that then gets higher than, you know, the script kiddies that we used to talk about all the time of, you know, teenagers in people's basements. Well, the sophistication level is much higher today with all of these activists, hacktivists they call them, that are emerging and really creating challenges that are not in a war plan, so to speak.
Welcome back. The Sea Service leaders on stage and at the FedGov Today desk at West 2025 in San Diego this week talk about adapting commercial solutions to their challenges more than ever. Speed is the main reason those leaders are open to commercial tools. Lieutenant General Susan Lawrence, U.S. Army retired, is president and CEO of AFCEA International. AFCEA co-hosted West this week along with the U.S. Naval Institute. I asked General Lawrence what Sea Service leaders tell her are their biggest challenges right now.
Probably the big challenge that they continue to face is 2027, when China says we're ready and we're going to take back Taiwan. And so what do we need to do to get ourselves ready? And as Admiral Papara says, who is, of course, the Pacific Indo commander now, he says, I'm not waiting for 2027. We need to be ready today. And so if you look at our theme of our conference, the future is now. That is our theme. And so what are those critical areas that we have to look at? And all our speakers are focused on that. Our panels are focused on that. And what I'm really enjoying seeing from our leaders is they are putting our pacing item up front, our people, our men and women. And what do we need to do to get them trained and able to work with these new technologies in this innovative, creative way to overpower any adversary who may choose to take us on. So there's a lot of discussion around that. Cyber always is at the North Star of being able to have veracity, understand where the threats are coming from. We know China has done a number of things. We have proof on those. And so the key is to make sure that our men and women, if we go by the latest technology that will overpower our adversaries, how do we ensure they're ready to operate in that environment with the new equipment, whether it's artificial intelligence, it's the machine learning, it's the propulsions, it's the ammunition, it's the whatever will give us the technical advantage over our adversaries. If we don't get it right with the training of our men and women, then it's just not going to matter.
That's right. That's the same observation, actually, ma'am, that I'm hearing from all the people that I'm talking to, uniform, civilian, industry, government, military, doesn't matter. They're all talking about people and preparing those people. Readiness is at the core of all of this, the way that it has been for the last number of years. Maybe we're framing it in a different way. Is that a fair observation on my part?
It's very fair. And as you know, unfortunately, for the last couple of years, our services have not met their mission when it came to recruiting the number of individuals that we've needed. It has improved, it's gotten better. And now we're focused on retaining. How do we keep the great men and women that we've trained at a high cost to stay on the team? And so we spend a lot of time talking about making sure they have the quality of life and the things they need to do to train, raise their families, and be part of this great armed forces that we are.
One of the biggest impacts here is the ability of the Sea Service principals to talk directly to industry.
Yes.
What have you seen as far as the way that relationship, that dialogue is evolving, ma'am?
I have been doing this for many years. My 40 years in service, 8 years with industry, and now with AFCEA, is the ability for industry, academia, and the government to talk. And I've never seen it any stronger than it is today, because we know that with these threats that we're being faced with, it will take this partnership. It cannot be a we, they. When I grew up as a young officer, we didn't talk to industry. Well, I realized later in my career, I couldn't do my job unless I was partnered with industry. And everybody realizes that now, that it has to be this partnership.
You can read more about West and the leaders that spoke there on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, data becomes the coin of the realm for warfighting at sea. FedGov Today with Francis Rose. Be back in a moment.
Those indicators that are keys of mission success, right? I mean, every mission has different objectives. Some of them are short-term, some of them are long-term missions. And it's really about evolving that so you're delivering for your stakeholders at large. And, software is such a big part of what we do every piece of our lives today. And delivering quality software is important at speed and scale.
Welcome back. The Navy's information superiority vision that Barry Tanner talked about earlier in the program is only one reference the Navy and the military more broadly is making toward data. Uniformed leaders at the West Conference and virtually everywhere they speak list data as a critical warfighting tool. Vice Admiral Karl Thomas is Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare N2N6 and Director of Naval Intelligence. At West 2025 this week, he calls data the coin of the realm.
I think as we think about having an information advantage or decision advantage, that data is going to be extremely important, whether it's data from sensing, data from planning, data for fires. And clearly, both sides understand the importance of data. And so we have clear cyber threats to our defense industrial base to try to gain intellectual capital. We have cyber threats to our own networks. So I think, securing that data, whether it's the data that's, operationally out there or the data that's in development of systems is first and foremost. And we talk about having to be cyber ready and built in and designing systems with that cyber hardening. So I think there's lots of work to be done in that environment. I think as you extrapolate the importance of data, it's about understanding that data. It's about using artificial intelligence to be able to help have machines do what machines do best, to help us make quicker decisions, again, to that decision advantage aspect that we need. And for me, it's in the fight from the mock, how CNO talks in her NAV plan about fighting from the mock. As we look at peer adversaries, as we look at the need to be able to spread our forces, aggregate in a time and place, that data is going to be central. And the mock we think about fleet maneuver and bringing all that data to the mock to make those fleet level decisions. So I think that's where my head is.
There's a lot of discussion at this show and broadly across the Department of the Navy and also the Department of Defense about computing at the edge. What's the implication of that? What the point is really to get that data to the edge so that the warfighter can use it to take action. It's not to compute at the edge, I imagine.
Yeah, so obviously the compute, our need to be able to sense at the edge, understand what's happening. And as we've heard a lot at this week, we've heard a ton about autonomous systems, we've heard about attritable systems, and clearly that all comes with information flow. Back to the first questions about security. So how much compute do you put at the edge and how much do you have to push it back? It's speed. In my mind, it's speed of information, speed of decision making, and so that compute at the edge is critical to that advantage.
What is driving the achievement of that desire for speed? What is industry doing to help you achieve that? What are you doing within the Navy and Marine Corps to achieve that? And what are your colleagues and peers across the department doing to work together to drive that speed that you need?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a little bit of a revolution in the way we think about designing, iterating, and learning. And you're seeing industry and academia, acquisition, and fleet operational folks and the requirement folks working together, trying to turn more quickly to develop. You're seeing it on the battlefield in Ukraine. You're seeing it in the Red Sea. The learning that's happening, it's a culture change. And the VCNO did a great job talking about it at SNA, about how we learn more quickly and how we get the information back to the warfighter so that they can turn and get better. And that's what's going to be needed in a fight against a peer, because they certainly are going to be doing the same thing.
One of the things that I imagine is encouraging for the warfighter at the tip of the spear is that they can now view you and your colleagues in the requirements areas as talking to industry and talking to your colleagues across the department as this is what we want to accomplish, not we need something that does this specific list of things. How have you been able to continue to drive that momentum to get to outcomes rather than get to lists of things to acquire?
Yeah, I think we're very outcome driven. It's part of the get real, get better culture that we've tried to instantiate across the Navy. It's about understanding our business. It's about understanding what the data is telling us and then making goals and driving to that as an outcome. And I think forums like this at AFCEA, where you can sit down with industry, where you can have the conversations about what we need to get to this outcome, are just super important. And so that's why I look forward to coming to things like West. Gives me a chance to just have those honest conversations with the folks that our partners in industry that have to deliver those outcomes for us.
You talked about the threat landscape at the beginning of our conversation. What's the evolution that you see? And I know nobody has a crystal ball, but how do you at least think about how to potentially anticipate what's coming down the pike in another 6 months, year, 2 years in order to prepare yourself and prepare your teams for what they may have to deal with?
Yeah, I'm personally very focused on our peer adversary. CNO in their NAV plan talks about Communist China as our pacing threat. And clearly that the lessons that we are garnering out of the Red Sea and out of the Black Sea help us learn faster. But to me, it's really about what we're seeing happening in the Western Pacific. We understand quite well what their capabilities are. It's a whole level higher fight that we would have to be in, that obviously we want to deter. That's the most important thing. But you're starting to see domains like space, domains undersea, all of those coming together that make such a much more rich and challenging environment. And so that data that we talked about, understanding from the proliferation that we're seeing happen in space, we're getting plenty of sensing data, but it's making sense of it and then being able to turn quicker. That's the fight that we need to prepare for.
What are the steps that you expect the service to take in the next 2 to 5 years, thinking out a little bit farther, to be able to be ready for that potential threat?
Yeah, I think counter C5ISRT is super important to maneuver. It's how we are going to maneuver in a contested battle space. Long range fires, the fires are only getting farther and farther. And so how we shoot is going to be much more complex. the non-traditional sea denial to be able to deny certain contested space, and then feathering it all together is the most important thing. And again, back to that mock where all of this comes together. Those are the things that CNO has challenged us with in the NAV plan. Her Project 33 goals to ensure that we're ready. And she wants to turn over in 27, 28 to her predecessor in a much more ready state than we are now. And we're always learning, we're always turning, and pretty exciting times right now in the Pentagon.
What do you think you need to do that handoff the way that CNO has described it in that time frame, basically to get from where you are today to where she envisions you to be in a couple of years?
The good thing that in the NAV plan that she's put out, she didn't change the NIFs. The 5, we added non-traditional sea denial, but the long-range fires, the terminal defense, the contested logistics, the counter C5 SRT, those are the same. So we've been working those problems, working them as a joint force, not just as a Navy, not as a Navy Marine Corps team. It's a joint problem. The joint warfighting concept is written very well to talk about where we need to go from a CONOP and an operating perspective. And now we need to get the systems of systems in place to be able to pull it all together. And I think it's articulated fairly well in the NAV plan, the right efforts that need to be put in. And if we can deliver on the outcomes and understand our business, we'll set up the future team for success.
You can read more about all the topics I covered with Vice Admiral Thomas on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today continues in a moment.
It's true. And we're not about replacing people at all. It's a misnomer. When people think about information technology and automation, it's about enhancing the work that they do, right? Enabling them to be more effective and have the wherewithal to make their decisions day in and day out, having the data at their fingertips to do so, whether it be back at HQ or out in the field.
Welcome back. FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10:30 with a look at the cyber workforce at DoD and the Marine Corps' IT modernization effort. I'm Francis Rose. I'll see you then. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great week. If you want insights from agency and industry leaders on the latest topics in technology, management, workforce, defense, and acquisition, sign up for the FedGov Today podcast with me, Francis Rose. I release new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, so you'll stay up to date on the issues that matter most to federal government leaders. Listen at fedgovtoday.com and everywhere you get your shows. Don't miss out on the conversation. Follow the podcast today.